There's a kind of hatred that doesn't look like hatred, doesn't scream, it doesn't punch walls, doesn't even know it exists. It hides behind jokes, logic, and indifference. It shows up in silence, in distance. In the way some men talk about women as if they're threats, burdens, or problems to be solved, but underneath all that noise is pain. And that pain has a name: disconnection. Not from women, but from themselves. Carl Jung warned that what we reject in our inner world will always return to us in the outer world, distorted, hostile, unrecognizable. And for many men, the rejected part is the anima, the part that feels, imagines, listens, softens. When that side is buried, it doesn't die. It becomes a ghost, a haunting, a shadow that hijacks relationships, fuels resentment, and convinces the man that the feminine is his enemy. But what if the truth is darker and simpler? What if the woman he resents the most is just a mirror? In this video, you're not going to get surface advice. You're going to walk into the fire of your own psyche. You'll see how your emotional repression became a prison. How projection shaped your worldview. It's how reclaiming what you've abandoned could make you powerful in a way no one ever taught you. A performative power, integrity, presence, clarity, wholeness. If you're ready for that kind of truth, hit like and subscribe. What comes next might unsettle you, but it might also set you free. There's a quiet war happening inside many men, a war they don't talk about, don't even have words for. It begins early, often before memory takes shape. A boy cries and hears "man up," shows kindness and hears "don't be soft." Slowly the message is absorbed. Anything that feels too tender, too intuitive, too emotional must be shut down. Jung called this silenced dimension the animate, the feminine aspect of the male psyche. Not feminine as in weakness, but as in receptivity, depth, imagination. When this inner side is rejected, it doesn't disappear. It mutates, it festers, and one day it becomes a hidden enemy living within the man himself. What follows is a life of hypervigilance. Man begins to monitor himself like a prison guard, afraid of appearing too emotional, too romantic, too affected. He learns to distrust softness in himself and in others. He scoffs at vulnerability, as if it were a foreign language. But beneath the stoicism is not strength, it's fear. Fear of being called weak. Fear of losing control. Fear of the inner war between masculine and feminine raging in silence. The wounded inner feminine doesn't just make a man suffer, it distorts how he sees the world. It makes him rigid where he should be curious, cold where he could be present, and cruel where he's secretly aching. Many of the men walking through life with clenched jaws and distant eyes don't realize how much they've lost by rejecting this side of themselves. Their relationships feel hollow, yet they don't know why. They chase achievement, but the fulfillment never lands. They feel misunderstood, even when surrounded by people. That's not failure, it's fragmentation. A disconnection from what Jung saw as the soul's bridge to meaning, the anima. Without her, the world turns gray. Emotions flatten, creativity dries up. And worst of all, the man becomes a stranger to himself, alive, but not fully living. You can see this fracture in the way some men speak about women, not as equals or mysteries to be known, but as puzzles to be solved or threats to be managed. Why? Because the traits they've been taught to reject, intuition, sensitivity, emotional nuance, live vividly in the presence of a woman. And that presence triggers everything they've locked away. It's not that she's the problem. It's that she mirrors the part of him he was told to hate. That discomfort isn't weakness. It's an invitation. It's an uncomfortable truth. What you criticize most in others may be what you've disowned in yourself. And if that hit deep, check the comment pinned below. We left a few powerful resources that can help you explore this further. Here's the irony. The more a man fights this inner softness, the more control it has over him. Repressed emotion doesn't go away, erupts in unexpected ways. Rage at a partner, jealousy masked as logic, or numbness that no success can fix. This is the psychological rejection of softness, and it's costing men their peace. And the world won't teach you this. It will praise you for your silence, your emotional detachment, your independence. But that praise is a trap. Rewards your isolation while secretly feeding your self-destruction. You don't need to become more emotional. You need to stop being afraid of what your own soul is asking you to feel. The fear of feminine energy isn't really fear of women. It's fear of your own depth. It's fear of surrendering to an internal world you were never taught how to navigate. But there's power. There's power that doesn't scream, doesn't dominate, doesn't pretend. It listens, it feels, it knows. That's the beginning of wisdom, not weakness. And any man who's willing to turn toward that rejected anima will begin to see what he was really running from all along. Not pain, but transformation. Not dependency, but connection. Not weakness, but wholeness. So here's the question. What part of yourself have you silenced to be accepted? And what does it cost you? Take a moment and reflect on the moments when you felt something stir in you, a softness, sadness, a saddened intuition, and shut it down. What if that moment wasn't weakness? What if it was the door you were meant to walk through? You don't need to answer right now. But consider this. Maybe it's not the world that's been against you. Maybe it's the war inside that's kept you stuck. Wake up one day and decide to distrust women. That mindset is built silently, over time, through pain, confusion, and stories never questioned. Often it begins when a man is emotionally wounded, but has no language for his suffering. Maybe he was betrayed. Maybe he felt unseen. Maybe he longed for tenderness and was met with rejection. But instead of processing the pain, he buried it. And what's buried doesn't disappear, it looks for a target. Jung called this projection, the unconscious act of throwing your inner conflict onto someone else. And for many men, the chosen target is the feminine. When a man hasn't integrated his wounded inner feminine, women become uncomfortable mirrors. Her emotional intelligence calls it manipulation. Her openness, he sees it as weakness. Her desire for connection, he labels it clinginess. But these aren't objective truths, they're filtered perceptions. Filters shaped by unprocessed pain and societal programming. This is Carl Jung Anima Rejection in action. The woman becomes a screen on which the man unconsciously casts everything he hates, fears, or cannot face in himself. That's why some men lash out, not because of who she is, but because of what she reflects. And this pattern doesn't only harm women, it traps men in isolation. He distances himself from the very qualities that could bring depth and peace. He scoffs at emotional connection, but secretly craves it. He ridicules sensitivity, yet feels unseen. He over-intellectualizes to avoid feeling, hiding behind logic and control. Meanwhile, relationships fail. Friendships lack intimacy. He moves through life armored, but hollow. And the worst part, believes this is normal. Masculinity, he's told, is independence at all costs, even if the cost is himself. Now here's a truth many avoid. The problem isn't what women do, it's what they awaken. A presence stirs the rejected anima. They remind the man of everything he's disconnected from. That can feel threatening, especially if he's built his identity around avoiding vulnerability. But there's another way to see it. What if the trigger is actually a teacher? What if the woman who frustrates him the most is showing him the part of himself he's most afraid to meet? We've listed a few thought-provoking books on this in the first comment below. Check them out when you're ready. Let's get even more real. Some men hide their pain by turning it into anger. They build entire ideologies around their disappointments. They confuse personal wounds with universal truths. Women are like this. They all want that. No, brother, that's not truth. That's trauma talking. And until you separate what's yours from what's real, you'll keep hurting others to avoid healing yourself. That's not power. It's paralysis, disguised as pride. It's the unconscious hatred of women as a mask for the psychological rejection of softness within the self. But once you recognize the pattern, something shifts. You start to see that your reactions aren't really about her. They're about you. Your emotional outbursts, your cold detachment, your need to dominate, they're all symptoms of disconnection from your own soul. That's where real responsibility begins. Not in fixing her, but in facing yourself. Not in controlling the external, but in mastering the internal. This is the essence of anima shadow integration. It's not a theory, a transformation. This isn't about becoming passive or losing your edge. It's about reclaiming the part of you that was buried alive. Because strength without softness becomes violence. And logic without intuition becomes blindness. If you want to be whole, you have to stop fighting your own reflection. You have to see the feminine not as an opponent, but as a map leading you back to what you've forgotten, your own humanity. That's not weakness, that's maturity. So ask yourself this: what parts of you do you criticize in women? And could those be the exact qualities you've been taught to reject in yourself? Don't answer too fast. Sit with it. Let it hurt a little. Let it humble you. Then let it open something new. Because the truth is, the woman who challenges you most might be the one pointing you back to the man you were meant to become. A man doesn't... There comes a point when a man realizes that the fight was never with the world, it was with himself. All the bitterness, the sarcasm, the emotional detachment, none of it brought peace. None of it brought clarity, just a constant background hum of dissatisfaction. Because here's the truth: when you silence a part of your soul, the noise doesn't stop, it only gets louder. And for many men, that silence part is the anima. The very thing they mocked in others is the thing they're starving for inside. But wholeness doesn't come from domination or denial, it comes from integration. Jung didn't see the anima as some mystical fantasy. He saw her as a vital bridge to a man's full humanity. She is not a woman. She is the part of you that listens before acting, that feels deeply before judging, that dreams, that knows. And integrating her isn't about becoming less of a man. It's about becoming more of a complete human being. The rejected anima isn't an enemy. She's a guide, a mirror, a compass pointing back to yourself. And when you stop fighting her, something wild happens. The war inside quiets, and for the first time, you start to feel whole. But integration isn't easy. It requires unlearning. It requires facing your history, your conditioning, your unspoken fears. It requires grieving the version of yourself that survived by shutting down. You begin to notice how many of your decisions were made from fear, not strength. How many of your relationships were sabotaged by the need to control. You start to see the emotional blueprint that shaped your entire adult life and how flawed it was. But that's where the power is, because what's seen can be changed, and what's integrated can no longer control you. There's no roadmap for this journey, but there are signs. You'll know you're healing when you stop trying to win every conversation, when silence no longer feels like weakness, and presence replaces performance, and you can feel something deeply without rushing to fix it. That's not regression, that's transformation. That's what Jung called individuation, the return to your full self. If you're starting this journey now, we left a few powerful tools in the pinned comment books that go deeper into this path. And here's what they don't tell you. The more you integrate the feminine within, the stronger your masculine becomes. It's not performative strength, not power that needs validation, but quiet authority, clear direction, clean boundaries. You begin to speak less, but your words carry more weight. You no longer chase, you choose, because you're no longer operating from deficiency. You're operating from inner alignment. And when that happens, your relationship with women changes too. You no longer seek to control them. You listen, you respect, you learn, and they feel it. Because for the first time, you're not reacting, you're present. And presence is rare. In a world full of men posturing, proving, performing, being fully present is radical. It's what separates the boy from the man. Not in age, but in awareness. The boy needs approval. The man knows who he is. And he got there not by avoiding pain, but by moving through it. By facing the shadows he once feared. By reclaiming the feminine he once rejected. That's anima shadow integration, soul-level integrity. It's available to every man willing to stop running from himself. But it's a daily practice. This isn't a one-time breakthrough. It's a commitment to show up over and over for the part of you were taught to avoid. It's choosing depth over distraction, connection over control, presence over performance. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, your inner world changes. You no longer live in reaction, you live in choice. You no longer see women as puzzles, threats, or saviors. You see them as human because you finally allowed yourself to be human too. So, what would your life look like if you stopped performing and started listening to her? Yes, but also to the part of you she mirrors. What if the softness you've mocked in others was the missing strength in you? And what if everything you've been running from is the one thing that could bring you home? You weren't born to perform strength. You were born to embody it. And that strength doesn't come from armor, detachment, or domination. It comes from the courage to face yourself, to walk into the silence inside you and ask, what have I disowned just to survive? What parts of me did I kill off to be seen as enough? And what would it take to bring them back to life? This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming what was always yours. The presence, the softness, the clarity, the ability to feel without drowning, to lead without suppressing, to love without controlling. The parts you were told made you weak may actually be the source of your deepest power. But you'll never know until you stop running, until you stop blaming, until you stop projecting your war onto someone else's face. So ask yourself honestly, are you reacting to the world or repeating what the world did to you? Are you living from wholeness or from defense? The answers won't come easy, but they will come if you're willing to listen to the voice you silenced long ago. If this video stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Take one step, leave one comment, share one thought you've never said aloud. And before you go, check the first pinned comment. We selected some powerful materials to help you go even deeper. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Yeah, you've already started the journey. Don't stop now.